Hey there, sports fans. Welcome to Foul Territory. I'm your host, Mike Smith. For any newcomers here, this is our second podcast, and we are the official podcast of the New York City Metro Baseball League. As you may know, we put the naming rights of the podcast up for a vote on Facebook, and Foul Territory is what won, beating out such other great names as Clubhouse Chatter and the Bullpen. Personally, my favorite was Walk Off Talk Off. Of course, I came up with that one. But the masses have spoken, so Foul Territory it is. Now, before we started tonight, I just wanted to make a quick note about the Facebook poll. It's something that we are going to be trying to do this year, is reaching out to you guys to see what you want me to talk about. So if you have any topics that you feel need to be addressed or questions that you want to ask one of our guests, just drop me a line at nycmudhens@gmail.com. I know Juan Ramos from the Riders already got in touch with me earlier today. Had a couple pointers for me on the podcast, so I'll do my best to oblige him tonight. Got a great second show for you tonight. We'll be talking a little bit later with Dan Trotta, the longtime manager of the New York Express. Dan, of course, took a year off from managing last year, played right field for the Brooklyn Hawks in the Single A division, but he's back this year. The Express are back, so we're going to talk to him about what it was like to step away from the managing aspect of the game for a while. But first, we've got Antonio Cardona, who's going to be a new manager bringing a team into the league this year. Now, I've been around the league long enough to know that chatter and hype in February and January doesn't necessarily a champion make. But, I figured we'd talk to Antonio about what type of team he's bringing to the league and how they're going to do this year. Antonio, how's it going, man?
Good, man. Thanks.
Obviously you played on the Beers last year, and not to kind of throw the Darlings under the bus, but when did you first start to have the idea that you were going to bring your own team into the Metro League?
Man, I've been thinking about it for a while, but specifically, it actually happened in the fall. I tended to, think to myself, I don't want to be that annoying guy who recommends lineups, for certain games, and kind of recommends, hey, you should pitch these guys, you should start these specific people. I didn't want to be that annoying person, so I said, listen, instead of being that guy, I want to start my own thing and see what happens and see, hopefully, I could have some success and not bother these people. That's kind of how I came to start it. It actually happened in the fall ball with the Rough Riders, actually.
I know that you played ball at Stony Brook. You got a baseball background. Have you coached before? Have you been involved in that process?
I haven't coached before, but been pretty good at recruiting. Played baseball since a youngster. Have always been a part of very solid teams, and have always been successful in putting together very talented clubs. So I said, listen, I think I could probably have a very talented ball club if I had full reign, because I understand, a lot of people like to have the old guard or, certain kids that they've, part of the team that they've kind of grown up playing with. And I said, listen, we're going to start fresh. We're going to start new. We're going to have the most talented people play. And, that's kind of how the New York Rainmakers came to start.
Now, when you were starting the team, were you looking at any positions in particular to kind of build the team around? Like, who were the first guys that you reached out to? Were they guys who have played in the league before, or were they outside guys?
I'd say principally it's guys who start in the league. Pitching wins games. So to answer your question, I'd say that I first targeted pitching. I actually, even though I played at Stony Brook, I was accepted to Cornell, and I actually walked onto the team as a pitcher. So one of my key guys is Taylor Wood. He when I was I actually was rehabbing my arm at Cornell after pitching a season there, and he was an incoming freshman and obviously a talented pitcher. I graduated, 3 years after, and he was still pitching. He had some success at Cornell, and he actually happened to move into my neighborhood. Met Mike Darling from the Beers in my neighborhood, went and played with them, brought on Taylor, and obviously Taylor has connections with some, college guys. He happened to bring them over to the Beers, and, we had a season there. Obviously me and Mike went in different directions. I actually said, hey, Taylor, want to come play for the New York Rainmakers? He was fully on board. So that's, to answer your question, he was probably the first guy that I came to recruit. Obviously he's a really good arm, kind of 84 to 87 mile per hour guy. A lot of connections in the baseball world, so he actually was instrumental in bringing new guys on when I was in the Beers, and was able to bring those guys over to the New York Rainmakers. So it actually, I'm going to give the shout out to Taylor. He was, he pretty much brought over most of the team.
Now, what was it like for you, coming into this as a first-time head coach? How did you find the process of making sure that you had enough guys at each position and making sure that you could really field the full squad heading into the year?
It's been it's actually been easier than I thought. Like I said, Taylor knows a lot of guys. He's fairly young, new out of college. So, he actually, going back, sorry to dwell, but, going back to the Beer season, he brought upon Mike Casely, who's our, number 2. Mike Casely is, still pitching at Cornell now. In terms of the pitching staff, Taylor's been pretty instrumental in bringing on, everyone we need. In terms of rounding out other positions, Taylor's actually also excelled in that venue as well. In terms of, up the middle, we're pretty solid. Thanks to the people that Taylor's been able to bring on board. Myself.
Kind of going into that. Are there any guys that you think the league should look out for? Guys that you think are really going to have an impact this year?
One of the kids that actually played in the fall ball, his name's Erik Perez. I think he's a pretty solid kid. He played for the Devil Rays in the fall. He's going to be our shortstop for the first half of the year. I think he's a pretty solid kid. He has good range up the middle, has a strong arm, pretty versatile type guy. I think he's going to be an impact player for us. He's going to bat in the middle of the lineup. As far as up the middle impact guys, that's the name that kind of comes to mind. We have other type, players that are going to be obviously, are going to contribute. Specifically, we have Devin Warner, who's a guy who played for the Bears for the past 2 years. We have a good relationship outside of the ball field. He works, he's a Goldman Sachs guy. I'm a finance guy, so we kind of hit it off there. He's a kid. He's a 5-tool player. Put up solid numbers with the Beers, and I think there's even more to come. I think he's one of the principal sleepers in the league. This is a kid who probably could have gotten drafted if it wasn't for health reasons once during his college years. But really really happy to have him. Great pickup. Unfortunately, the Beers couldn't retain him, but. Really, me and Devin have a very solid relationship, and he's kind of one of those guys who knew that I was going to kind of give him the best competition available in the league, and he was willing to kind of go where I went. But those are the two guys that kind of jump out up the middle, aside from pitching staff.
Now, you guys are going to be in the Brooklyn Queens division. Obviously, a lot of the teams there have been in the league for a while, know each other very well. You're kind of stepping in as the outside team, but you do know some of the teams, especially playing with the Rough Riders. What's your view of the landscape right now in the Brooklyn Queens division, and who are the teams that you think you have to look out for?
Good question. I mean, playing the Brooklyn Queens, obviously, gathering the facts over the fall. The Rough Riders are definitely a solid team. You know, they have JR, definitely a quality arm. You know, mid to high 80s type guy, so it's definitely going to be a contributor. Scrimmage the Mud Hens. You know, it seems like they're very, solid team. A lot of Division III quality arms. So, I don't know much about them, but definitely from my scrimmage that I played against them like 2 years back, very smart bunch, know how to play the game, very good chemistry. So one of those teams that could beat you on any given day. So, definitely have my eyes set on them. But, principally, I don't want to be biased, but from what I can gather, kind of worried about the Rough Riders. Definitely decent speed, could put the bat on the ball, well coached, and have some high quality arms coming out of the pen late in the game. So, obviously, if those guys are on, they could definitely beat you any given day.
And finally, because you're making the transition to manager, this is something that I went through. But, how are you prepared to use yourself and sit yourself in certain spots? I mean, obviously you put up good numbers with the beers, but, have you thought at all about, how managing yourself is going to play into things this year?
Absolutely. I'm willing to give kids a chance. I'm willing to kind of step aside. Me and Taylor have pretty good chemistry, so I'm kind of, when he's on the hill, I'm his catcher. That's probably not going to change. He's our ace, so he's going to pitch any first game of the doubleheader. But the second game, definitely want to give kids, the chance to get their at bats, and definitely willing to step aside, despite the fact that I could definitely help the team with the bat. I understand people are putting in their dues, and they definitely deserve a chance, regardless of whether, I'm playing or not.
Well, Antonio, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. Obviously I look forward to seeing you. I'm sure we're going to meet more than a couple times this year, but I wish you guys the best of luck, and can't wait to see you out there.
No, I appreciate it, man. Thanks.
All right, take care. So that was Antonio Cardona with the New York Rainmakers, a team new to the league this year. And from a personal standpoint, I just have to say that as a manager in the Brooklyn Queens division, we always love seeing new teams come in. I mean, obviously, over the years, we've developed a lot of really great rivalries with, other teams in the division, be it the Riders, the Storm. But it's always exciting when a new team comes in because you really don't know what to expect. So to Antonio and the Rainmakers, I wish them the best of luck, at least until they play us. All right, to flip over and see what's going on in the other boroughs, I'm here with Dan Trotta, longtime manager of the New York Express. Dan, how's it going?
Doing great. Under a little snow here, but otherwise doing fine.
Yeah, it's not exactly baseball weather out there, but, I'm glad you came on the podcast because you kind of were in a unique position last year. Now, how long had you been managing in this league up until last year?
I managed 6 years with the Express, took last year off. Went down to Single A and just played and had a great time playing for the Brooklyn Hawks. And but during the course of the year, a lot of the guys were calling me up or sending me messages saying, hey, we got to get the team back together. And in the end, I couldn't resist. So we're back this year. We came back and played in the fall, and we are getting ready to go. We were actually supposed to start practicing today, but the facility where we work out closed because of the snow. So we're going to start up again next week.
Now, last year, you're not managing, you're playing for the Brooklyn Hawks. What was that experience like for you, just in terms of how much pressure you were dealing with, just as a player as opposed to, being in control of everything as a manager?
I loved it. I just showed up and played. It was great. I usually started one game, if not both, in right field, and just really enjoyed the experience. And I think that for one message to take out of this for all the managers out there, yes, we amongst ourselves know how much work it is, but for the players out there, you really ought to appreciate what your manager does. It is a tremendous amount of work. All the things that go on behind the scenes just to get a team ready. Just the very act of showing up with a lineup card, baseballs, and umpire money 5 minutes before first pitch is not easy, let alone all the other stuff that goes on. So players out there, appreciate your managers. It's a lot of work.
And now, you said that guys were talking to you from the Express during the season. Now, most of these guys went on to play for other teams, stayed in the league, stayed involved. What was it like? Do you think you have most of the guys back from the team that you had been managing? Most of the guys are leaving whatever team they were with this last year?
Yes, pretty much. We had guys who played for different teams in the league. A couple guys took the year off and came back. I know that I'm not the most popular guy in the league among other teams, and I don't really care about that. What I do care about is my players, and I felt privileged that a good many of them, some who were on other teams and some who didn't play, decided that they really wanted it to come back and do the Express thing again. So I do have most of my core players back, with maybe one exception. I think every former player I have asked to come back has come back. Also picked up some good young talent in fall ball. So I think it's going to be, look a lot like the old Express team with some new guys, younger players we picked up in fall. We need to get a little younger, a little more athletic, and I was able to pick up a couple guys that way. And so we're going to be back out there. Really looking forward to it.
Now, fall ball is something I wanted to ask about because I've been talking to managers about where they find guys, and I know personally we've never participated in fall ball, but it seems like there are a lot of teams that use that time in the autumn to kind of recruit new players. Is that really what you went into this fall hoping to do?
That's partially true, and it's also based on experience. The best recruiting I've had have been from the times of playing fall ball because it's open. You can bring anybody in. You get a good look at them. You see their skills. You see if they're a right fit. I've always found that that's the best place to recruit because, recruiting is so tough in this league because obviously everybody wants to get the best players they can, but at a certain level, at this level of baseball, when a guy gets so good, he doesn't want to pay or he thinks he's a superstar. And so you have to really recruit right at the ceiling of those guys who are good enough to help you win, but not so good that they're going to expect to be treated like a professional or given special treatment. So, fall ball, I think, is just one way that you find guys who just really want to play ball, and then it helps you to find pick the best among them.
So now, you say you have kind of the old look Express back this year for teams that were maybe new to the league last year and haven't gotten the chance to play against you. Who would you say are some of those guys that are going to be key for you in what you guys hope to accomplish this year?
Well, we're going to have Carlos Quintana back. He's a former MVP of the league. We have Jonathan Bonhomme. Carlos, of course, is a center fielder, probably leadoff hitter somewhere at the top of the order. Jonathan Bonhomme, lefty pitcher, but also plays a first base and right field. They're the probably the marquee guys that people know from around the league. But we're a mix. We're kind of a mostly Puerto Rican Bronx team with some white guys and a couple of Dominicans. So some of the former Express players, we do have the Polsinelli brothers back, all three of them this year, Mike, Fred, and Nick, who hasn't played very much in the league, but we're hoping to get more from him this year. We also have coming back to us Mike Resnick, a former Cy Young, who had been playing in Jersey for a couple of years. He decided he wanted to come back to City Ball. So we'll have Resnick. We have Chris Mosley, who I think went back and played for the Bears last year. We've also got Sergio Bruno behind the plate. Azark is coming back. Mike Azark played for the Cubs. He's going to be with us. So yeah, we're looking tough. And then I also really like some of the guys we found in fall ball. A young shortstop named Christian Ruiz, a young lefty pitcher, Rolando Ramos. They're like 19 years old, these guys. And then we've also picked up another good starting pitcher, Jonathan Quinones, who used to play for the Diamondbacks. He's going to come play for us. So I think we're looking pretty deep all around.
Now, obviously, having been just a player last year, are you planning on putting yourself out there in the field a little bit more?
I would like to. My problem is I don't think I'm really good enough for my team. I'm also coming off a shoulder injury. I was in a bicycle accident and I had a torn labrum, and I'm still in rehab from the surgery. So that's kind of what happened. When I first started my first year with the Express, I was a starter. But then as the team kept getting better, I didn't feel like I belonged in the lineup, which was part of the motivation for us forming the Midnight Express, which was the midweek team that we had in 2010 and 2011. And in years past, I've played myself a little bit more in fall ball. So yeah, I'm 48 now. I think my best playing days are probably behind me, but I will definitely grab a couple at bats here and there.
And, just finally, obviously, it's not really, as I said, baseball weather out there right now, but have you started to think about, scrimmages and potentially getting out there before the season starts?
Absolutely. Normally we get started a little earlier. We usually start in January, but they really jacked up the rates on the gym for us this year. And plus I just bought a new apartment, so I was in the process of moving. And we were going to get started today with a combined indoor-outdoor workout. But yeah, definitely, I've been in contact with a couple of teams for scrimmages in March, and part of the problem of playing up here in the Northeast is the weather. Of course, you really can't. I think the coldest I've ever been on purpose was at a scrimmage at Harris Field one year, where it was just snowing sideways, and we were out there in a baseball scrimmage. It was absolutely ridiculous. So it's tough. A couple of my guys are actually playing with another team down in Puerto Rico right now, which sounds very nice. I'd love to be able to just do a full spring training down in Puerto Rico or Cuba or something.
I think we all would, yeah.
We'll be we're going to be doing indoor-outdoor workouts for a few weeks, scrimmages for a few weeks, and of course the biggest concern is always the pitcher's arms. Are the guys' arms in shape? So at the beginning of the year, especially, I like to keep those guys to really short innings, 2, 3, 4 innings max, early in the year, and build those arms up as the weather gets warmer.
Great. Well, Dan, I appreciate you stopping by on the podcast today, and I know that a lot of teams will be looking forward to having you guys back in the league. So again, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks a lot for that, and also a shout out for whoever it was who came up with the name Foul Territory. Love the name. Very much enjoyed the podcast last week with Pardo and Ryan Vaughn. So thanks for doing this, Mike. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. So that just about does it for this edition of Foul Territory. I want to thank Antonio Cardona and Dan Trotta for stopping by. Before I go, I just wanted to remind any managers that haven't done so already to please register their team for the 2013 season. Let's hope that the snow melts quickly so we can get back out there on the field. And until next time, stay healthy, stay happy, and if you can, keep it between the lines.